Hi everyone. In this lesson, we're going to look at the changing interpretations of the evidence at Pompeii and Herculaneum. Anyone who attempts to study Pompeii and Herculaneum, even in the smallest way, will come across different interpretations of the evidence. And this often happens in history, no matter which topic it is. For example, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Now, according to the standard history, he was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald. That's the official finding. But many people believe in conspiracy theories. Many people believe it may have been the mafia who killed him, or the CIA, or someone else. So there's many different hypotheses and theories about what actually happened to President Kennedy. Another one is Tutankhamun. Tutankhamun, the pharaoh of Egypt, there was theories for about 40 years that he may have been murdered, because on his mummy there was like a problem with his skull. The back of his skull was broken or damaged in some way, so they thought he may have been murdered. And for 40 years people believed this. They thought it could be true. And then it was only in about 2006 they examined his mummy and they found he had something seriously wrong with his leg, and his head wasn't that badly damaged. And they now believe that he probably fell off his chariot or something. He had something wrong with his leg that caused him to die. So when you have new evidence, it changes the way you think, it changes the way you look at things. And that happens with a lot of issues in history, whether it's how President Kennedy was killed, how Tutankhamun died, or the evidence presented at Pompeii. There's lots of different ways they interpret evidence. So that's what we'll be looking at in this lesson. Archaeologists and historians have often taken different perspectives for a range of reasons. For example, how destructive was the earthquake in 62 AD? Now, we know that there was an earthquake in Pompeii. We know that they had the earthquake in AD 62 and some of the buildings were damaged. We can see those damaged buildings even today when you see the ruins. There have been different interpretations related to this earthquake. Amedeo Maiuri, who wrote in 1942, and Penelope Allison, who wrote 50 years later, saw the buildings as evidence of economic decline and social upheaval. Historian Alison Cooley argues that too much emphasis has been on the damage caused by the 62 AD earthquake. She offers other explanations. For example, if repair work was being done, it may have been a renovation, not a repair of earthquake damage. So she's saying if you can see a building and it was in the process of being repaired, they may not have actually been repairing it from the earthquake damage. They might have just been doing a renovation, just like people today renovate houses. They might have just been renovating the building to make it nicer. The Lady of Oplontis. Here's the Lady of Oplontis here. In the 1980s, 75 victims of Vesuvius were found in a room at Oplontis, not far from Pompeii. A cast of one of them, made from transparent epoxy instead of plaster, was called the Lady of Oplontis. So Pompeii is famous for its plaster casts. We've all seen the plaster casts that were made by Giuseppe Fiorelli. Here is another plaster cast, but it wasn't made out of plaster. It was made out of transparent epoxy. So you've still got the same effect. You can see the individual at the state in which they died, but they just used a different material this time. This body was actually brought to Australia in 1994. The body was x-rayed in a Sydney clinic. It was examined by a Sterile laser and a team of medical specialists. And you've got to understand, it's not just the transparent resin. Parts of her skeleton and parts of her body were still inside there. They found out many things about the body, such as its age and health condition. Another issue is housing and social status. And this, of course, is a picture of the House of the Faun, which was named after the little faun there, the statue of the faun in the house. It was once believed that by examining a house in Pompeii, you could tell the social status of its owner. Recent studies, such as the examination of 127 houses by Andrew Wallace-Hadrill, indicates that this is not necessarily the case. He says that they may have inherited and accumulated these objects over time. So he might have had a grandfather who was quite rich, and his grandchildren inherited the objects. Population estimate is another issue. Until recently, it was thought that if you estimated the number of people who occupied a house, you could calculate the population of Pompeii. Andrew Wallace-Hadrill argues that this is inaccurate. Another issue is commerce and trade. Earlier studies had the view that Pompeii was a trading city and its wealth derived from external trade. For example, Pompeii was famous for its garum, or fish sauce, and this was exported to other parts of Italy and other parts of the Roman Empire. Pompeii was well known for its garum, its fish sauce. It's now considered more likely that Pompeii was a consumer city, where the wealthy elite consumed the goods that were produced. So there are a variety of issues in which interpretations change over time. And also, with Pompeii and Herculaneum, they say that this was like a wealthy area, just like you have Monaco today in Europe, and Florida, which is like a playground of rich people in America, and in particular Monaco, which is a real playground of the rich and famous. They say that Pompeii may have been like a playground of the rich and famous in ancient times, and a lot of people may have had holiday villas there that they went and stayed in. New research and new technologies change the way we interpret evidence and change the theories that are there. So as we study bodies like the Lady of Oplontis, as we study new evidence, and in the future when more excavation is done, at some point in the future they might fully excavate Pompeii and fully excavate Herculaneum, there'll be more evidence that will come to light. And when we've got all this new evidence, more theories will be produced, new interpretations will be made. So there's always changing interpretations as new evidence comes to light and new historians create new theories and hypotheses. So that's how things get changed over time.